How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the show. We have our man Oliver Nye in the house from Big Bass Dreams. Owner, founder, all-around badass dude, and friend.
Hi, friend.
The voice.
We have, well, a lot to discuss as usual, because that's what we do. Although I guarantee you this is going to be less than an hour, because we're only covering one topic for once. Unlike all other nights where we try and throw in 1,000 different things all in one shot. Tonight it's all about glides. This is going to be an interesting one too, because typically, like, I do a lot of talking, right? I'm going to be doing a lot of shutting up and learning and listening just as much as everybody else.
Who you guys got on tonight?
Some dude from California. I guess he knows a thing or two about throwing big baits.
Yeah, the worst.
Travis Herring.
Should have called him up. Oh my god, we should have surprised him and pulled him on and be like, so you live on Clear Lake. How many double digits you got? Any teeners? What's your biggest? Tell me you broke at least 10 pounds once. And just watch him cry.
He'll just give us a finger and log off.
Yeah, he will.
Is that your buddy that moved there for the Coast Guard?
Yep.
Yeah. He's a good dude.
Not easy, man.
No.
He's gonna see.
We were talking about it not too long ago, and he was like, it's crazy how many bigger fish I've caught back in New Hampshire alone versus what I've done out here. And he's been out there for a year now, right? Close to it?
Yeah,
You had to really think about that.
I did. I was thinking because when he shot his deer, I was trying to think of when we did that.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be coming up on a year. Travis, How long you been there? Where are you? He's never here. All right, first order of business for everybody that is here. Again, thank you very much for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate your presence. If you could do me a favor, drop a like on the stream, please. That would be hugely appreciative. If you go down into the video description below, you will find a whole number of things. First and foremost, you'll find links to both Big Bass Streams, both the channel and their website. So go ahead, go over to the channel, subscribe. They have been doing a phenomenal job with a lot of the content they've been dropping recently. A lot of bait breakdowns, the whole 9 yards. Beyond that, anybody that's willing to donate, we would greatly appreciate it. Not at all necessary. Anything you guys want to do has been hugely helpful. If I could, I would show you the latest acquisition as a result of all the said donations. So everything that we have done with the money you guys have donated has gone 100% back into the channel. Like, we're using this crazy nice Sony A6400 that we use for the webcam. We take it on the boat, do a lot of B-roll footage with it. Sometimes we do photos with it. It has been, hands down, like the best thing you guys have done for us. And we then, we got the Rode caster here, which has made this whole process seamless. I end up taking a little bit of that money to pay for a subscription to StreamYard that makes, especially having guests on, that makes it like this is the easiest thing in the world. Like, I just dump every single penny back into this. The latest thing we did, we got two 42-inch TVs to set up. That
There's one there, and there's one over here.
And so it makes it easier because I had this ancient, like, extra TV that my wife and I first bought, our first HD TV back in 2007. And it just didn't work right with a computer. Like, the way they were calling aspect ratio or whatever did not line up right with use for a computer. So trying to, like, size things and frame it was a pain in the ass. So I was like, screw it. I bet I can find two cheap TVs, cables, the whole 9 yards. And I did. Ended up finding these for $150 on sale at Best Buy. So you guys more than covered it already from the last several weeks of donations. So again, thank you. Now I got two giant TVs I can look at so I can multitask like a champ. It's going to make my life 10 times easier and also make things go a lot faster while we're doing this. So again,
is going crazy right now. I don't know.
If you guys look on your right, this is what you get without donations, and on the left, professional setup there.
Appreciate you.
We do. Weekend fishing report. I don't want to go into it this time. I will just say that we went out scouting. And that's actually what it was actually what brain. Yeah, there's word, whatever. Anyway, what made me want to do this topic tonight was what my buddy Nate did this past weekend, and it just happened to be a suggestion that I've found multiple times when asking you guys, the subscribers, what you wanted us to cover. And glide baits in the fall was definitely up there, top of the list for the number of responses I got. So the timing of this was perfect. I asked Oliver if he wanted to jump on. He was more than happy to oblige. And the scouting went pretty well for my buddy, not so well for me. I dropped something big, and that's That's all I can say to it. All I know is that I could not move that fish. That was one of those like pure shoulders, no run, just like rod's doubled over, and no matter how much you pull up on it, the fish the fish doesn't move. It's like no. I'm gonna go over here, and you're gonna come with me. And when I'm tired, maybe I'll come up. And she came unpinned under the boat. And I tried a bunch of weird finessey stuff, ground out the big bite quite a bit. I did get 2 swim bait fish, so I'm happy for that. But they weren't anywhere near in the same class as my buddy did with the glide. So here we are. We're going to talk about glides tonight. I'm done rambling. Let's get into it. Andrew, you get to kind of guide this from here between you and Oliver, and I will interject between what I see in the comments and...
Okay.
I'm thinking... What I would like to do, I'm thinking, I already thought about this earlier. What I'd like to do is let's start with kind of a beginner's approach for people that are looking to jump into glide bait fishing for the first time. Touch on that relatively lightly, then we can step right into like, okay, let's talk about situational, specific situations, I guess different conditions when you're talking about however much information, Oliver, you're willing to share, the whole 9 yards. We can kind of go down that more advanced level steps as we go. But let's go into it from a beginner's perspective.
Sure. Let's take, for example, Andrew's new acquisition. Hold that thing up for the boys and girls at home.
This thing is ridiculous.
So it's hard to tell, like,
how big this thing is.
This is the Arashi Storm Glide by comparison, which is about the same size as your standard S-Waver, which is like still a decent sized glide, but obviously nothing like what the Gancraft 303 is.
Totally. Don't do this. You're starting off. Don't start with something like this. The 303 is exactly like you described. It's more of an advanced level lure because of the fact that you're just going to get less engagement.
Right.
If you're learning something new, you need as many opportunities to screw it up as you can get. Because when you can learn from those mistakes, and you're going to have to make those mistakes and really become efficient with those opportunities that you get, the fewer they get as you climb up the scale of your glide bait size, the less hair you will lose and the more sleep you will retain, because the last thing you want is to get the biggest bass you've ever seen come up, smoke a bait like that 303 on the first 20 minutes of you test swimming it, and you made a crucial but easily avoidable mistake that you could have adjusted for by making that same mistake mechanically when the stakes weren't as high, when a 3-pounder eats a 7-inch glide. So start small, get numbers of bites, learn the nuances of this style of lure, and enjoy that process. Like, that is a fundamental part of big bait fishing, is you need to have a solid foundation of experience to capitalize when a big one eats it. Like, we've all heard the stories of someone that just picked up a big glide bait for the first time. On the first cast, they caught something ridiculous. Like here in the West Coast, guys would catch like a 15 on the first cast they've ever made with a big bait. But I mean, that kind of stuff's just going to happen. But the odds are you'd probably either miss the bite or barely hook the fish or lose the fish, worst of all. So start small. Don't worry so much about targeting like a 7 or 8 pounder where you guys are at, or a 10 pounder where we live. Just go out there and get bit. Because the same way you're swimming that bait, the same way you're setting the hook or not setting the hook, the same way you stop reeling or reel completely through the fight, all those things are transferable as you scale up in the size of your lure, your tackle, and hopefully the fish that are eating them.
Yeah.
Stop trying to jump the gun, man. Like, there's too many gung-ho dudes that have no fishing experience jumping straight into the big bait game. I think that's a huge mistake, because they're going to get no, not at all. You've got a solid foundation and fundamental techniques, and every one of those techniques, whether you're fishing with a small swim bait or a jig or a worm or a crankbait or a topwater or a jerk bait, that all translates to something big, and in this case, a glide bait. A jerk bait, for example, is a perfect learning tool for glide bait guys. Like when guys book me on these personal training sessions, Like, I gotta ask him, like, hey, like, what is it you want to learn? He's like, oh, I want to learn how to catch them on a glide bait. Okay, you ever thrown a jerk bait? And dude, I'm surprised at how many people have never thrown a jerk bait. Like, what? Like, if you don't understand jerk bait fishing and the subtle nuances, like a lot of the things I'm going to explain to you when you're trying to target them with a glide bait and go straight over your head. So it's like, all right, how about this? Like, let's go out there, let's throw the jerk bait around for 1 or 2 sessions, get you some engagement, get you bit, get you used to the mechanics, because the same way we don't set the hook because of the setups that I run, it's going to be the exact same way you're not going to swing on these big glide bait fish. So you build muscle memory and good habits on a low end. And after I see them crack, hopefully 20, 30, 40 good jerkbait fish, I'm like, okay, I think you're ready. You understand cadence, you understand rhythm, you understand erratic motion, you understand the importance of stalling your bait and suspending it in key ambush positions on your cast. You understand a lot, and you've lost enough fish on the jerkbait when they jump off, or when you're actually swinging hard on the bites and you only got them by 1 treble hook out of 9 points. You can see all of that firsthand. And then when we go out there and throw a smaller glide bait, because once again, those bites are important to learn from, they're going to get maybe 2 to 10 bites in a day. And that's a good day. We had 6 bites yesterday.
That's a good day.
Great day. I was like, man, we got 6 vicious bites. Like, that was fun. And we only ended up landing 2 of them. They're just kind of eating it funny. It's strange. But you got to be okay with learning on those smaller fish and then work your way up. Like, don't jump the gun and go straight to even a 230 Magnum or Depths 250 or I Slide 262. Like, you're just not going to get enough bites to learn from.
It took me a while to get used to. When I started first fishing glides, I think it was in the fall, actually, and I bought, I think it was the Arashi Storm, was it 19 or whatever it is? It was like my first real, here's my first real glide, and it was I think it was the day that me, you, and Travis went out, and it was windy.
Yep.
And we went up to this probably 5 or 6 feet, big flat area, and the wind was just blowing into it. And what was it coming out of it? I don't remember. It was
blowing into it. It was the inlet side, but we always do well up there. That's why we went there. But it's an area that we are very intimately familiar with. We've done exceptionally well. I mean, in my case, literally for over 20 years at this point, I've been fishing that area, and we've done well with a variety of baits. But it's one of those we know that after a couple of days of consistent conditions, they're either pushed way up in the shallows or they're in that second stage where the thicker vegetation breaks off, and there's still a lot of thicker vegetation, but now it's not lily pads, it's more slightly submerged veggies. Mm-hmm. And that extends out over from say 3.5 to 6 feet of water before it drops off yet again to a third stage of more open water. And it's that middle section during the summer that they just love to hang out on in this particular pond. So we're we should go there and toss big baits. If we go up there and throw a spinnerbait, we know we're going to crush them.
Right.
We have that level of confidence. So what better situation to go throw these bigger baits that we're not usually familiar with or at that point comfortable with yet? That was the absolute perfect conditions to do it.
Right. And when we got up there, I was I want to throw the glide. I really just want to try and catch a fish on the glide. I had caught 1 or 2 previously on a different glide, it was a small, I don't even remember what it was. And it was just, I think it was just kind of luck of the draw. I didn't really know what the hell I was doing with it. And then I started just slow rolling it and feeling the bait and feeling what it was doing. And then I would pause it and then start going again and just continue that. And then all of a sudden I got bit and I was like, oh, I guess that's a thing. So, kind of like a jerkbait. You can just sit there and let it pause for a minute and then start cranking it again. And I kind of just kept doing that and over and over and over. And I think I got bit 6 or 7 times that day.
Yeah, you did.
And I caught 2, I think, 2 or 3. And then I was like, okay, that's it. I love this. This is freaking awesome. This is probably my favorite thing in the world to do. So then a couple years, I think 2 years went by, and then I finally was like, all right, I need to upgrade. And then I got the Depths 250, and once I started catching fish on this, I was like, okay, this thing is huge to me now. Like, this is just an absolute giant bait to me. Like, I was actually kind of concerned that I wasn't going to catch anything up here in the Northeast on this thing. Like, the first fish I got on it that day when we had that 29-pound whatever bag day it was.
That's right. No, what was that? 27-pound bag.
I don't know.
In Massachusetts.
Bunch of 5-pounders. And of course, one of the smaller fish of the day didn't bite this thing, but I didn't care. I was so happy. It was like the coolest thing in the world was to buy this super expensive lure and go out and catch a fish on it. It was like an eye opener. I was like, okay, this is actually like really freaking fun. This is awesome.
Yeah, there's that visual element of this genre of big bait that's just so captivating. Like you find yourself sucked into the way you're swimming this bait, and the way you can get it to cut, and this, that, and the third, and all of a sudden you get so lost in that presentation when a fish flashes on it or eats it, just like shocks the crap out of you.
Yeah, I was not expecting it at all.
It happened 6 times yesterday. Like, we're just trying to fish the baits, and it's got pretty good visibility, and we saw every one of the eats. Like, it was sick.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
cool.
That's how it was for Nate on Sunday when he was working his Depths 250, and it was this. I told you about it, Oliver, so you know what I'm talking about. But it's that lake, and every time we go there, I try and convince Andrew, and he's thrown his depths a couple times. He's like, yeah, but there's a lot of pike in there, and it's the only one he's got. Nate lives. He's a swim bait guy. That's all he does. No conventional tackle left. He's got 4 big swim bait rods. He's got just nothing but big baits, and he always wanted to come up there. I was like, you got to come up. If there's anybody else that we fish with that's gonna be able to do this, you're one of 2 people, and he's the only one I know that's like, screw it, I don't care if I lose a bait. So we went up there, and it was very, it was just fucking awesome to see him go out there and huck this thing and have the reward of it. But watching it, I mean, that place is gin clear. You can see from 50 feet off the bait, and all of a sudden you see that dark shadow behind you. You just hear him go, oh, here we go. And I can see the bait flash, and then that dark little line right behind it, just following it in exact pattern an inch off. And
the bait's mesmerizing to them, but the fish is mesmerizing to us. So it's like, it's I don't know. It's a different feeling when you get to watch them come up and just absolutely demolish a big bait.
It's I don't want to age myself too bad, but I started throwing these baits before anybody even knew what the hell a glide bait was. This is going back to like 2012 when a Huddleston, a triple trout, and gosh, what else was usually tied on everybody's rod back then? I can't remember. But like
plopper.
There just weren't that many viable options as far as big baits go. And then my buddy came down to fish with me. He's actually the DRT distributor for the U.S. now, but he's always been a hammer. He's probably caught more teen or largemouth up there in that Northern California area to this day, more than anybody else I've ever known. And he keeps it look pretty low profile, but he's got a 17-12. He's got a couple of 16s. He's got like multiple 14s, 15s, and this, that, and the third. And he actually hung out with Manabu, who tied the world record when he came here to the States. And he ended up bartering with him like a 13-inch Rago tool for a Roman-made mother.
Oh, Jesus.
Really?
Yeah, that's before you can really get him here. So he brought that thing with him. I'm like, holy crap, man. It was like the 303. Like, it's big. It's like 12 inches long, 10 ounces, something insane. And I was like, what the hell is that thing? Like, how does it swim? He's like, yeah, these Japanese guys got these glide baits, and you just wind them straight, and they just swim in this S pattern. And I'm like, that's different. And I got my hands on a Rago Gladiator, the 9-inch version. And sure enough, straight wind, it did this whole deal. But I'm always trying to see what I can do to push the envelope with any of these baits. I don't care if it's a square bill. I don't care if it's a 3-inch swim bait. I'm going to try a bunch of random things to see if it does something that I like. And I was playing with the cadence and retrieve and stopping it and burning it and this and that. And my buddy Raphael's like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, just wind it straight. And I'm like, and boom, and I catch like a 7. And I think I had like 11 fish that day.
Damn.
Yeah,
Because they've never seen it before.
man, it just went to show like this bait, along with any others, but this style of bait especially is fantastic for like being a freestyle fisherman. Like you can make it do so many things. And at that time, I had figured out like this cadence where I'd glide it, burn it, and then kill it. And man, I could almost call my shots of when that fish would freaking smoke it.
Like a jerkbait.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So those
That's
fun.
why I suck at glides.
That's why I texted you last night.
Yeah, man. I mean, dude, seriously, like my man David, he just got his package, but like that BBD bait fish pattern, like I thought it was important to do this colorway across the spectrum because there's plenty of people out there that have not embraced jerkbait fishing or glide bait fishing, but like this is the perfect learning tool. Like seriously, tie on a jerkbait like these rest, 128s or 108s or whatever. Go catch fish. Pay attention to what you're doing because that's important. You got to be observant because you can mimic your success. Like that cadence I figured out that day, I was being observant at when I was getting strikes. So I was like, oh, they're not eating it when I'm hitting it once. They're not eating it when I'm gliding it twice. They're not eating it on the pause after that. They're eating it after I burn it for like 2 quick handle turns and it comes to a stop as it's gliding and comes to like like that stall moment. Mm-hmm. Boom. That's when they would smoke it. So
yeah, I had that happen too, a couple times.
And there are days, man, when they want that slow roll, just meandering motion. Like I'm guilty of not trying that enough up until this year, fishing with my buddy Nick Howe up at Clear Lake, and he's like watching me like fish this 178 jointed claw like a madman, right? And it's like doing all this crazy stuff. He's like, "You fishing like that?" I'm like, "Most of the time." And he's just sitting there, just barely turning the handle, and I'm getting like smoked. He's catching like 4-1.
Damn.
I'm like, come on, they can't like that stupid, boring, slow. And dude, enough, man. I just did that for the rest of the week, and we just ended up cracking them. So those jointed claws especially excel on that bite when they don't want that crazy, like erratic action.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just seriously low, as slow as you can turn that handle, especially as the water temps start dropping.
Yeah, I was trying a bunch of different weird stuff with this. Like every other cast, I was just trying different. I don't even. The thing is freaking sweet. I like this thing. It just does whatever the hell I want it to do.
Yeah, man. It's a special bait, and what's unique too about a lot of these baits, I have a hard time finding floating models of glides. Other than like the bait sanity stuff, which I've been fishing a lot this year.
You mean this?
Can't really find. Yeah. Oh, you mean that guy?
Yeah, buddy. Wait, that floats? Kinda.
Not this one, but the new tug that's coming out later this month does.
Ooh.
So that's
I already broke one of these off.
Did you? Brutal.
The gill.
This is a unique bait because this is a floating bait that Fahad designed to do all kinds of wild things. Like you can walk the dog with it on the surface. You can get it to swim down. I was actually adding weight strips to get it to suspend at Candlewood. I got like a 22 or 23-inch smallie on it.
I believe it.
What was yours out there that day? 24 inches or something stupid like that?
Yeah.
It's like 4 1/4.
Yeah, like empty fish. Like I was like, oh, that sucks. But still super cool. But the floaters are unique, especially where you guys are fishing, or even here on the West Coast now. And we were talking about this a little bit pre-show. Dude, our lakes are so low from the drought. Like sometimes these fish are in these like super shallow flats. And if I'm trying to fish a standard slow sinking glide bait, if I need to present that bait slow, it's sinking out into the mud or down in the grass or over the trees or whatever. But with the floaters, I can keep it up above the snot grass, the hydrilla, the milfoil, whatever. And I can stall that bait indefinitely too. Like we were actually fishing this offshore hump yesterday, and I actually just reviewed the video, and I tell Riley to throw the ripple claw over this hump. It's probably like 8 feet wide and like 15 feet long. It's just isolated hump out in the middle of the lake that you can see now because the water just keeps dropping at this lake. I'm like, throw it over the freaking hump, fish the back side of it, but then let it float up. And the top of it's only got like 6 inches of water over it. So I was like,
Come up and over it.
yeah, wake it, draw some attention, and as soon as you come back on the front side of that hump, twitch it. You might get a reaction bite. And dude, it's textbook. I'll eventually post that video somewhere. And the fish comes up and just smokes it. But
That's awesome.
You couldn't have done that with the slow sinking bait.
No, because you couldn't get it up over it.
Correct. You would just be snagged on the backside and you blow the spot out.
Yep.
Yeah, when you told me this thing floats, I was like, this is perfect.
There's so many applications I can think of in our area for that because of what it does. So do all of those Gan Crafts do that? Like even the 230 that's on the way for me?
So the 230s that we got are floaters. So we're sold out now, but we are hopefully getting a batch of slow sink as well. But I was throwing the floater around yesterday for the same reason, and I made a little bit of an adjustment. I actually did want it to get it down at times, like 4 to 5 feet on certain places. So I actually threw it on fluorocarbon. So the fluorocarbon has that effect on a long cast to drag the bait down like slowly, and I could really suspend it. And then there are times when I wanted to keep it high, I'd have a second one tied up on a rod with braid to fluoro because the braid doesn't drag the bait down.
Right, to keep it up a little higher.
Yeah, so if I wanted to fish the outside edge of a grass patch that's actually like matted to the surface, I would throw the rod with the braid on. So there's really fine-tuned adjustments you can make with the floating style baits. And we had a run of floaters and slow sink with the 170. All the ripple claws are floaters only. And the 303s are all slow floats. And
yeah, I like the slow float with it. Because where I was, if I threw the 250, because I've done it before at this same spot, I throw the 250 in there, it's a slow sink. But I had the issue of it coming down and bumping all the rocks and catching a bunch of stuff and getting caught. And I did the same thing with this. I just stopped cranking for like a half a second and just started slow cranking it again. And it would just stay right where I wanted it to.
I've really discovered that fish respond well to baits that either float or sink, thanks to live scope. Like having a bait truly suspend, like dead still, in my mind is now overrated. Because I'm watching them just stare at a suspending bait. And I mean, they just don't eat it nearly as much as that bait's actually trying to get away from them, slowly going up or sinking down fast. Seems like they want that bait sinking fast more than they want it like slowly sinking. At least that's my observations over the last 3-4 years with live scope. So
I mean, in all fairness, we can back that up too, just with what we've done with jigs the last 2 years, really, and especially this past year, where there was a long window where I was throwing like even 1/4 ounce, but a lot of 3/8 ounce jigs and trying to use like trailers specifically to slow it way down, thinking like that was it. But we found this year 1/2 ounce was definitely much more of a friend and more streamlined, but very reactive style to the legs on the trailer.
Yep.
Has been like money. And then that was probably like 3rd or 4th trip out. We were like, we're getting bit on the fall. We can feel this. So we had to adjust how we were letting it fall to make sure we were still hitting what we wanted to, but not missing those bites anymore. And especially in the middle of summer, I think we had like 8 consecutive trips where it's like you bomb that thing out and you had to let it fall in like semi-taut line, almost to the point where it's like I felt like I had to pull back on it a little bit to make sure I was maintaining that, because then about 20 feet down, you'd feel a little either tick or a thump. They wouldn't always hit it hard.
Racing off in a 5 3/4, jumps 4 feet out of the water.
Oh yeah. The number of big fish we caught from catching them when they were eating on the fall because we were throwing these bigger, heavier jigs was a little eye-opening this year.
Yeah, man. It's fishing is a game of observation. Like you can,
damn right.
If you're paying attention, you can mimic success.
Oh yeah.
So and it's that goes back to what you said earlier, probably about 10 minutes ago now too, where it's those subtle little differences that make all the difference in the world. We talk about that a lot too with just a lot of our standard presentations, and it's things like that that if I can just get myself to pull my head out of my butt and be confident and stick to these baits a little bit longer, like I already have all of that observation, I guess the fundamentals down. Just for some reason I've got this mental block when it comes to jerk baits and glides that I can't really, like, I'm translating it, but in my, like, there's a disconnect. It's like I am doing it right, but in my brain I feel like I'm still not doing it right, and it's the dumbest thing. But we do it with all these other things, like especially with bladed jigs this year. Like that 27-pound bag day would be a perfect example from a different bait perspective, but general perspective, exactly what you had said about how you're fishing your glides and just paying attention to what the fish are doing and adjusting as needed to take advantage of that. And I had that one fish that kept casting back to that rock. I saw that rock. It was like the perfect presentation for that time of the year. First cast, I get smoked, missed it. Like, okay, well, it feels good. I know he's there. Let me try again. Go to the other side of the rock. Get smoked, miss it again. Third time, other side of the rock, smoked, miss again. I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? What have I not changed? Well, because he's definitely hitting it, but I'm still going a little too fast, I'm going to speed it up and almost like pump it to lift it up. But it's only a 3/8 ounce head, so it's not going to rocket back down. But yeah, like even a 3/8 ounce bladed jig is going to fall pretty fast. But that was it. Like the moment of steady retrieve, they were digging it, but they weren't eating the whole thing. And then just quick, a little, almost like quick double turn burn with a light lift to the rod to pick it up and then kill it. And it came back down right about to that same depth they're eating it, and then just freight trained it.
So we pretty much replicated that all day.
Yeah, and then it broke off that 3/8 ounce. I didn't get bit for an hour because I didn't realize I tied on a 1/2 ounce.
You're like, what size are you using? I don't know.
And then I was like, well, pick up your bait. And it was literally everything else was the same, except he was throwing 3/8 ounce, and I didn't realize I had tied on a 1/2 ounce when I had a 3/8 ounce on previously. Soon, like literally, I think it was second cast after I went back to a 3/8 ounce, doing the exact same shit that was working all day. All of a sudden, it's just like boom, boom, boom. Just we started hammering fish again. I think I put 2 more 5s and 2 more 4s in the boat after. Well, one more 5 and 2 more 4s in the boat after that too. Mm-hmm. So it's just it's a, I guess a traditional tackle perspective that really demonstrates exactly what you're talking about, and I hope my rambling kind of helps other people that are much more traditional people that are trying to get into the bigger baits. Hopefully that kind of perspective and prime example helps you to better understand what it is that we're trying to illustrate here.
Bravo.
Well, thank you.
I'm just excited to go throw this. I don't even care. I just want to go. I just want to see something follow it again. That's all I want.
Well, I know where we're going Sunday, and it's funny because, like, so while you guys were talking about the 303 and the 230 and how they're floats, and how you were talking about fishing over kind of some shallow stuff, and then you were talking about that smallmouth you caught on Candwood earlier this year. There's one lake in particular here in New Hampshire that I love, and when the water hits like 50 to 52 for like 2 or 3 straight days, they stack up in 10 feet of water or less. And that's all I can think about with that Gancraft on the way is I can't wait to go throw it at this, because that is about one of the clearest lakes I've ever fished. The amount of like stupidly good structure and the way they hold up in a lot of these spots, and especially if the wind's blowing the right way. Every time the wind's blowing like 30 plus, we go out in this lake and we get our teeth kicked in. We speared a wave hard once, maybe. No, one time we were close, but one time last year we speared a wave hard. We're the only idiots out there.
Jumping the boat all over the place.
Yeah, but we caught almost like 70 smallmouth. We had another 20-pound bag just on smallies, which is pretty good for New Hampshire. So it's now that I got that and you told me that it's shallow like that, I really can't wait, because I know I'm going to fucking wax them out there on that thing.
And dude, that 230 catches like good fish. Like I was catching spots in the opens last year on it, like 3-pounders.
Nice.
So that's a pretty sweet, that's a sweet bait because it kind of hits a sweet spot in size. Like it's not too much. It's small enough to still get bit by 3-4 pound fish throughout the country.
Yep.
Big enough to draw really big bites. I don't know if you guys had saw that post on my Instagram story of my guy Kobe Pearson out of Oregon with a 1030 spot.
I saw that.
Yeah.
The thing was huge.
230.
It looked like a football.
I mean,
a basketball.
Circle.
Wrong ball.
That absolutely insane because that bait is almost disrespected because people are so hyped on all of these small release baits that are kind of new and they're all chasing this mythical freaking unicorn bait. I remember the Hinkle was that for a few years. I mean, you go back far enough, the triple trout was that bait. And what everybody that's new to this needs to hear is it has never been the bait. Like, the bait is not going to catch the fish if you don't know what the hell you're doing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Truth.
What was I saying the other day to you?
I don't remember.
I only want engineered baits.
Yeah, man, I did the Gankrab Joint Claw. I think 178 was their first model. Came out in 2004.
Really?
Holy crap.
It is unchanged
Wow.
for a reason.
Yeah, 'cause it produces.
So, I mean, is this thing just pretty much upscaled of that?
For the most part, they made that specifically for the U.S. market because there was that big craze and push, you know, with that mother,
Right.
Hinkle trout, with some of the Rago stuff,
The Denali?
13, 14, 15-inch baits. Like, I think the biggest bait I ever caught a bass on was a 15-inch Nate bait prototype.
Jeez.
Oh my god.
But I fished my monkey ass off for weeks, and I finally got a fish to eat it. And it was a 6-pounder, and I'm like, that was way too much work.
You are like a third of what I'm chasing. Get out of here.
Fish is hungry.
I just haven't found that math to work. There seems to be a threshold for me. And that like 9 to 11, 12-inch max seems to be kind of the sweet spot in drawing the biggest bites out of a system. Anything bigger than that, you run into the issues of not hooking them because your bait is a freaking monster. And those 5/0, 6/0 trebles that you think visually match that bait are just too much hook and they're not getting hooked well. Now you got a bait that's 3/4 to a pound plus stuck to their face, probably not to more than 1 or 2 points of that treble hook. And you're fighting it on a freaking broomstick because that's the only thing you can cast this thing with.
Right.
Just
And
makes it hard all around.
dude, it's just
Especially when you get bit by a giant.
yeah. So I found that, like a 303 is about the max size I'll throw.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm all set.
Yeah.
Going bigger than that.
It's funny.
Put it next to my forearm, like, dude, this thing is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
It's so big. I was telling him when I first got the package, I was like, oh, I wonder if he threw something else in there. This package is kind of big. And I opened it up and it was just the box for this. I'm like, what the hell? What did I just buy? It's like one of those like Rapala like display pieces. Oh my God.
It's funny, like out of everything we talked about and stuff too, one of the things that I don't even remember what the hell made me think about this, but I was thinking about you when Nate caught that 610 on Sunday because like I heard him just all of a sudden go, yeah, yep. And I look back and rod's bowed way over. And I threw my rod down, grabbed the net because he already caught a 5, so I figured it had to be another big one. And the thing came up, and all I saw was the mouth. And I thought, honest to God, I thought he had a 7 to 8 pound class fish. That even with how big that fish was, the mouth was still like disproportionately kind of bigger compared to the rest of the fish. But like he got it up, it came up mouth wide open, and I saw him just start reeling down as hard as he could on that fish, and he kept it. And I remember you talked about this in one of your streams. Kept that mouth wide open and full of water, and she just came in like a dead boot, just friggin' an old boot. And she got it right to the boat, and she just barely started to kind of free herself up and get ready to kick. But I got her in the net before she could do that, and it was just like that, done. Like no questions asked. Set hook, drag her in, just power her in, got her in the net, and just she just laid there. She's like, well, okay.
I mean, I've definitely learned the less that this bait is moving when it's attached to the fish,
Yeah.
the better. So crank that freaking thing in. Like
that was
your life depends on it.
That was hilarious. I felt bad too because it's literally his next cast. He threw it behind the boat because it was windier than hell on Sunday. We were just kind of drifting with the wind. I was trying to slow us down as much as I could. So he's back to his right. He's looking at me to his left. And so I'm looking back at him, and all of a sudden I saw one that, honest to God, I think was bigger than the 610 he caught. Come up and just roll on the bait, get stuck for a half second, and just kind of like quick little 1-2 head shake, came unpinned, and then like finished the roll as she went back to the depths. And I just like, He's like, he goes, was it big? I'm like, yeah, kind of.
That's the thing, man. Like, you can never win every battle with these fish. They're gonna get the upper hand some days.
Yep. Let's turn this over to the chat for a minute because there's a bunch of questions here that are actually some really good ones we haven't had a chance to address. And then I actually have a couple of questions too that if nobody else gets to it in the chat, I'll throw them in there. But I'm kind of hoping everybody else in the chat asks them. So now's a good time, everybody watching, that if you have any questions, throw them in there. We're going to work our way from the oldest to the newest. Why did that not pin? There you go. From South Jersey, Oliver, what old swim baits do you still use that produce? Wait a minute, this is not the one I was supposed to ask.
Well, you already started, so.
Okay, yep. And why hasn't anyone brought back that swim bait Doc Holliday and Butch Brown used to use, the Worm King dinosaur?
Because it's like 35-year-old technology and it looks like a boot. And it was big as hell and just, it's very uninspiring if you were to lay it next to anything modern. But it was cheap. It was actually a big saltwater, like a lingcod bait. Pretty much, you put it on a giant, like 10-ounce lead head and sink it down 300 feet, and these lingcod climb all over that thing. But it was one of the few available options for the SoCal OGs, like Doc Holliday, to try to match the profile of these rainbow trout that these big fish were eating. But there are plenty of old school baits that get bit. I mean, predecessor to the glide bait is this thing right here. I mean, look at that thing. I wish you guys could see this thing in HD because it's got a lot of character.
I'm going to see if I can.
Oh my God, that thing is destroyed.
And it's caught by, I mean, it's caught everything here in
Holy
Southern
crap.
Like, those are legit teeth marks, literally all over. And here's something you guys need to understand when you're looking at baits with teeth marks. They're not getting those teeth marks necessarily from the strikes. They're getting teeth marks when they're pinned to their mouths and they're fighting you and shaking their heads. That's usually when you're getting marks. So don't be fooled by like the hook rash, the semicircles from the hooks hitting the body. You want to look on the upper shoulders. Like you can see them inside the joint here. But that's an old school bait that everybody forgot about. I bet you would catch them now. And when I was catching fish here in Southern California, I was either fishing something brand new that nobody was using, or I'd go back in time and throw a bait that people kind of forgot about, like these gang crabs.
Yep.
So trying to stay ahead of the curve by being way behind it can be very successful. And I did that on Clear Lake for a long time. I mean, everybody up there and their mom throws an LV 500. And I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to what we were doing with the Nomad Vertrex soft vibe this year, but we absolutely stomped their ass by fishing a saltwater vibration bait that has no rattles because it's quiet. Because those fish had got conditioned to the sound of an LV 500. And even before that, I was crushing them on like a 1-knock rattle trap, like old school, because I knew that was the sound and pitch that those fish weren't just getting hammered by 300 guys. Like, so you can definitely stay ahead of the curve by falling way behind it.
It's funny you mentioned that. There's quite a few baits I fell back on the last 2 years that we've been killing them on. And there was like a 5 or 6 year window where I wasn't throwing them because I was just finding new things I wanted to try. They were doing exceptionally well. So like other things they just got replaced. And then, 1 or 2 days where the new stuff wasn't working. It's like, well, you know what? I haven't thrown this in a while. And it used to always kill it in these conditions. And then kills it again. You're like, yeah, I remember why this used to be good. And then you end up talking to a couple of close friends like, shit, man, I haven't thrown that in ages. It's like, you should probably revisit it again. It's funny. There's one specific thing that I was talking to you about the other day that I was thinking about for a tournament coming up here in 2 weeks, for a 2-day tournament. I was like, you know, I bet will work really well because we haven't done it in a long time, but it's like one of the best things I used to do in the fall. We should do this. And he just looks at me. He's like, yeah, you should.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the memory. And I brought some when we went there last Sunday. I didn't throw it. I was like, I just know it's going to work. It's not even a question.
Yeah, it's going to.
So I'm just going to wait for the day of the tournament, and I'll have a rod rigged and ready to go for that. But I've also got some other ideas for some new baits. Got some interesting depths baits. What the hell was that? The help me out here. That 4.5-inch soft plastic.
The poop.
No, not the poop. The
Like a jerk bait or
not the jerk bait one, the next one. It kind of looks like a jerk bait, but it's more like
Oh
a.
yeah. God, what the hell is
Reminds
it
me,
called?
what the hell was it called? Didn't I send you a? Hold on,
remember.
I got it. It's coming. Hold.
I'm holding.
Hold. Oh Jesus Christ, dude, we talk too much about other things. Where did it go?
Conversation
Oh.
is wild.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, it's a cool looking bait. I'm looking forward to trying it because there's 1,000 things you can do with it. So, I saw the video for how you can use it, kind of like a jerk bait, but it's almost like a hybrid between a jerk bait, a tube, and a fluke for what you can do with it. And watching video from depths of the things they were doing it, showing it weighted versus unweighted, I was like, I've got some really good ideas for that. And then you said a very specific technique. You're like, I bet you'd work on that. My mind has been racing about that. And then also remind me, we got to talk about this after because I'm curious to see how it's going to work. Actually, Oliver, I want your opinion on this too.
It's gonna work. You kidding me?
I've got an idea brewing about a very specific thing that I've never done before, but the application makes sense. Anyway, we're getting off track. We got to get back to this. We can't take advantage of this man's time.
I know he's always a very busy man.
I know. All right, so David wants to know, what is the best way to cast big glide so it's not like throwing bricks in the water? That's actually an excellent question because it sounds like a cannonball every time.
my man South Jersey fisherman nailed it on the head. Don't overhand cast it. Low trajectory is the key. I mean, I was doing that yesterday. Like I was throwing on such shallow targets, even further away from the boat, and I was doing my best to minimize that commotion and entry because I did get a couple bites on the ripple claw, like pretty much as soon as it hit the water, and I hit it with that first crank, and it was just a reaction bite. And I felt it was crucial not to land on its head like a bowling ball. And your best bet is to keep it low, like a small roll cast is very effective. The more parallel you can keep with that water surface, the less splash it's going to make, and then you can feather it almost the same way you can feather a buzzbait right before it hits the water, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can learn how to cast with your offhand, like I've gotten really good because I'm a right-handed guy and always grew up fishing right-handed reels, but I always casted with my right and then did that instantaneous switch like mid-cast. And I can honestly say I don't think I've ever missed a bite because of that switching because I was just always really fast with it. But I've learned how to cast with my left hand, especially that kind of roll cast that's parallel with the water, especially being on the front of the boat makes it easy. But I had to learn these casts because I fish out of the back so much. I kind of had to just work with what I could.
Same.
No matter what angle the boater approached a bank from, I needed to be able to deliver that cast. So, man, it takes practice, but you need to be able to cast on either side with either arm. And that way you can really maximize your presentations. And like it takes practice. Like I think I'm almost as good, casting with my left as I am with my right.
I'm not.
For big baits, no, but for everything else, I've gotten really good about going like crossways because you have to sometimes, depending upon boat position, where everybody else is in the boat.
Try to skip under trees up to the bank.
Yeah, and in our case, like 5 GoPros hanging off the boat.
See, I felt like doing it with the bigger baits was an easier transition because you got all that momentum. It's actually just easier to get it out there. And it was easier for me to learn to downsize. So now I can like skip a jig or a frog or whatever, like the same way. But like having that extra momentum and the weight of that big bait presentation was like easier to learn with.
Yep.
Because I wasn't always that way. I was just like old school, just right hand retrieve, cast with my right arm, switch to my left.
It's funny when we were out on Sunday, I was throwing my DEFCON 7-inch shallow crank down, and the wind was pushing us into the docks just right. But I ended up catching like a low 2-pounder on it, working off the front side of the dock. And the lake, like those docks and the boat slips and the dry dock lifts for the boats are all really tight. We're going down. I'm like 20 feet out the front of them. I was like a jig. I was flipping my 7-inch hard body crank swim bait, just going down, flipping it or pitching it into like all these little nooks and crannies and swimming out.
It
was fun
too. Yeah.
Yep.
I've gotten more comfortable being more accurate with it now.
Yeah. It looks weird when you do it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you get it there as long as you get it there. Yeah, like shrimp baseball throw it.
4.
Who else we got? Alec. Good evening, fellas. Hey, friend. When you say you fish it similar to jerkbait, are you referring to working the rod in a similar fashion or more working the reel cranks in a similar cadence? That is actually a good question.
That's a great question. I'm probably referring more so in how you're manipulating that bait versus the rod action and mechanics as far as setting the hook, not setting the hook, and fighting the fish, and similar rod actions and such. There's a lot of parallels there. Obviously, you got to really rip that rod to move a jerk bait. You don't really have to do that as much with these glides. I find myself using the reel to impart a lot of action with a little combination of that rod, just depending how much action or movement I want to get out of that glide bait. But for the most part, I'm just talking about visualizing and actually swimming that bait however you want. Not so much like hitting it like a jerk bait.
Right.
So
Yeah,
like
imagine throwing a jerk bait that size.
yeah, I was fishing that 230 pretty erratically at times because I had a couple fish follow it to the boat, and I was like, all right, let me just get this thing kind of buck wild to lead it hopefully into the 8 trap at the boat to get it kind of keyed up and hopefully it would strike. But for the most part, it's not a lot of rod manipulation through most of the retrieve anyway.
I did have another question from a text from my buddy Chad. I want to make sure I get that. Hide that. All right, yeah, so my buddy Chad wants to know, how long did it take you to gain confidence throwing the big glides? We all know this technique is challenging and makes us put our rods down pretty quickly. You can say that for me.
It took me a day.
Screw you.
My first bite.
You're built different.
But here's the thing, like I was literally in the middle of like a crazy bite. Like I was catching. I mean, dude, this is the third of the way through my 7-week stretch where I caught 17 fish 10 pounds or bigger. So I can only imagine what someone like Steph Curry like is feeling when they're like in that zone. But for like that 7 weeks, I was in that zone as a bass fisherman.
Yep.
So it didn't really matter what you handed to me. I could catch a fish on it.
Hell yeah.
I've been in that situation before. I'm not catching teeners or anything like you.
No.
But I mean, like,
I only got one teener out of that. So
I mean, in all fairness, that's how I got my confidence. Same exact thing, just obviously nowhere near that same scale with wake baits. That 2 years ago during the start of COVID, remember there was that 7-day stretch where I had 9 over 4 pounds.
Yep.
Literally every day I had at least a 4-pounder, and there was, I proved my scale was off by more than a third of a pound. It pissed me off because 2 of those fish would have went over 5 pounds if I had a proper scale. Is what it is.
like when we went out that day, that overcast day.
Oh yeah, we had 4 over 4 pounds in like an hour and a half just working those wake baits. It was like, yeah, okay, we got this figured out.
Okay, just cast and crank. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, location was key.
Location was key.
Yeah. All right, our buddy David, why do you think they prefer a bait that's slowly floating or sinking? You think it's just because it's creating distance and they don't want to miss out on the meal?
that's a great question, man. David's coming with some hammer questions tonight. It's the same thing as when you're hanging out at your buddy's house, that weird buddy that's got a cat. And if you're just going to sit there and stare at the cat, it's going to sit there and stare at you. But if you pick up that little feather toy and start messing with it and toying with it and triggering a predatory response, it's probably going to pounce on it. So I feel too many people make the mistake of freezing and like stopping their bait altogether mid-retrieve because they think that's going to trigger a bite. It's like the worst thing you can do.
I've noticed that. I've had more fish just be like, nah, as soon as I stop it.
Yep.
They completely just like, they sit there, look at it for a second, and they're just like, just kidding. I don't want that anymore.
So I feel like if they're super neutral, like when your water temps get into like 30s, like that long drawn out pause is going to be effective. But for most of the year, especially in the warmer months, like get that thing moving.
That's something I need to do better with. Okay, well then I'm going to go a step further with this. What's better, to keep it moving, or what some people have explained to me is also a really good method for trying to, especially in the case of having a fish, like you see the fish following it, keep it moving, kind of along the same lines of what you've been doing, or where you can get that quick snap 180 to turn that bait around and stare him in the face?
I've never seen a fish do that to another fish.
Fair
And
point.
the probability of foul hooking that bait on that turn is pretty high.
Yep.
Now for sure it ain't biting that son of a bitch. And even if it does, the hooks are facing the wrong way. You're not hooking them. So for me, it's too high risk of a maneuver. Unless you're like right on top of it and you can control that line to keep it from swinging into the front treble.
Yep.
Because I've seen guys successfully do that. Like a lot of the Japanese guys fishing from the bank, but they're usually on an elevated canal or something.
Yep.
But if you're like doing it at water level out of a kayak or even from the shoreline or a boat, like your likelihood of foul hooking that bait is pretty high, especially in that moment you get excited.
Yeah, like that time up in Vermont when I had that, like, I don't even know how it was 5+ followed up to the boat. And
You're talking about the one in this spring?
Yeah.
Up in the shallows?
Yeah.
You mean the 7?
Oh, was it? Huh, whatever.
Dude, it was so big. It was so big.
It came up, and I didn't know what to do. I was just like, my brain just went like static, and I was like, stop. So I stopped it, and it came up, and it looked at it, grabbed the rear treble, and just went, nope, and turned around and went away. I was like, huh. Well,
There's no sense of urgency anymore.
What's that?
There's no sense of urgency. So that fish has got no reason to strike. It's like, oh, this was just sitting here. I'm not going to do nothing.
Right. I was like, I'm too close to the boat. I don't know what to do. And my brain was going all static, and brain function just failed on me.
You're not going to catch them all when you move it away from them and fish it fast, but you will get more bites than you would just dead sticking it.
Yeah. Which is, it's funny. You guys have said it how many times tonight? And then in previous shows we've done together, in your shows that I've watched, Oliver, in conversations with you, Andrew, about, I guess, just paying attention to what the fish are doing and then kind of leaning on the fundamentals of other techniques. And yet I still couldn't make that connection in my brain. Like, I was hearing it. I believed everything you guys said, but for something in this conversation, what you two literally just said just now kind of helped like really hammer in that point. And I guess it's like that whole like heart to brain soul connection that just finally all clicked, where it's like, yeah, okay, now I'm thinking about everything I've ever done with a jerk bait and what it took for me to get past that mental block I've had with it to find success. And now I understand the connection I need to make with the glide, and I'm past that mental block. I feel like it. I don't know. I have to go out in the water and do it.
Actually go out there and fish it for an entire day or a week or a month. Like every time you're out, instead of just picking, like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just pick up the jig. No, just keep fishing that glide. That's what I did. I had a mental block. I didn't know what the hell I was doing with this giant thing when I first got it. I was like, I'll just go throw it until I get bit. And I got bit, and I was like, okay, now what? Now how can I improve it?
Well, so I finally figured out how to explain this mental block I have with the glide. Too much input from too many people that know what they're doing, and they're all doing it differently.
That's why I'm deaf. Works great.
Yeah, and that was the hardest problem I had with fishing a jerkbait. Was like, I'm like, what am I supposed to like expect out of this? And I instead of just relying on the fundamentals of other things that at least can be mimicked to a certain extent for what you can do with cadence and everything, instead of leaning on that knowledge I had already gained in other areas, I was trying to translate everybody else's successes and put it into my own methods. And that rarely works for me. I had to figure out a way to make the connection. I just finally made that connection right now. And thinking about all those amazing days I've had with the jerkbait, granted not many, but we've had enough. And that this conversation talking about like the 180, I keep thinking about that giant that I missed last year. Because the same deal, I had her right on the butt of it, and then she was right underneath the boat, and I 180 in her face, and she was like, nah, and she swam away. But then I've had plenty of days where we fishing a jerkbait and had them right on the butt of it, and I figured out, I'm like, no, dude, well, I'm just going to rip it right past their face and then kill it after a couple feet. And every time, like clockwork, they come up and they choke the thing. And I don't know why, despite the fact that like it was always there in the back of my head, but it just didn't click that like, yeah, I can do that, and that makes sense, and I've got all the confidence in the world I can do it. But thank you both, because all of a sudden the connection's there, and now I have all the damn confidence in the world to go out and do this weekend.
Good.
Awesome. It's
like a little breakthrough.
Frustrated because I always give these super vague answers, and it's like, dude, I'm not trying to tell you guys how to fish a glide bait. Like, I'm just trying to share with you some key key ideas and observations that I've made through my fishing that hopefully give you guys insight to do it on your own. Like, if
Yep.
too many people want an
The
easy
answer.
man. It's
I mean, nobody taught me how to fish these things. I didn't go out with somebody to be like, look, how do I fish this? I just started doing it and then figuring it out. Just like every other thing that we fish with. I mean, jigs, yeah, you got me started fishing with jigs and you kind of told me how to do
You're
it. And like, I kind of figured out that was easy. I was like, okay, it's just like throwing a Senko with a weight. So
Slower the better.
and then these things, it was like, oh, it looks like a giant jerkbait, but it's jointed. So I'll just swim it back and see what happens. And
nice.
from there.
I want to make another point about all of these baits. Is I observe too many of this new generation of big bait fishermen wanting baits to do everything amazingly. And I think it's ridiculous. If you have a bait that does one thing amazingly well, understand when you can apply that bait and utilize it for that. Don't be mad because it doesn't slow roll, or don't be mad because it doesn't burn or whatever. If it does one thing really good, man, you got a solid tool in your box to reach into when that situation calls for it. And it's just going to take time on the water to understand and observe when that is. Like, there's no easy answer for that. Like, there are guys, I was reading like comments, reviews on the Tackle Warehouse Gangcraft page, and one guy was like super salty that he was getting water in one of his jointed claws. And it's funny because like I've actually almost cracked jointed claws on purpose to get water in them so I could sink them down like deep in the column.
Yep.
Or guys would get hinkle shads back in there, like, oh, this thing floats. Like, I think it's a piece of crap. Like, what? Like, you don't want the floater, the one-off that nobody else has? Dude, I'll swap you something for it because I can utilize it in all those situations we talked about in the beginning of the show. So even if you get a jerkbait that fills with water, like, don't throw it away. Put it in your box, tie it on when those fish are sitting below 15, 20 feet, and you can't get a jerkbait down there otherwise.
Yep.
Because I was fishing saltwater 110s because they sink. So I could cast them off of a 25-foot ledge and show them a jerkbait where they've never seen one before. So same thing with all of these baits. Like, just because it changes doesn't mean it's like dead in the water.
Yep. It's funny because I have a Vision 110 that I've hung on the wall because it cracked and it's filled with water, and I only like throwing jerk baits in moderately shallow water because that's just where my confidence still is with them. Every year I get a little bit better. I can think of an exact scenario right now, and that's why he went shush, because I know he's already thinking the same thing I am, where that color is money in this particular area, and there's one spot where that thing filling with water is going to be the greatest benefit to me ever.
Yeah.
That's why I texted you last night. Can I get this thing to suspend deep?
Oh,
now I know why you're thinking. Okay, I know exactly where you're talking about.
If you need
40 feet
weights to add to that, don't bother with those suspend dots or strips. Those things are trash and too light. You could probably find them on some of the JDM sites, but Gancraft makes these lead strips. They make them up to like 4 grams.
Ooh, yeah.
So instead of like adding the entire package of suspend dots and not having them work because they all just fall off, like, you can actually tune your baits like as precisely as you want to or need to, and they don't fall off nearly as easily.
Yep.
Yeah, Nate texted me last night. Zapu board weights?
Maybe.
I don't know what they are, but
We'll figure it out.
Everything. There's too much crap, as you can.
Yeah, no, if I could actually show all the crap in my room too, and that doesn't include the other half of the crap in the other room, I still need to organize. It's pretty bad. Hey, you know what? You get to a point where, okay, you've learned to fish the whole season, right? And you've got, especially if you're doing like a mix of big baits and traditional baits, you've got like early spring, summer, fall, late fall, and then you're like late winter, early spring, mid-spring, spring, and it keeps going. And
rainy
now we're at the
days.
point where it's like,
rainy days,
okay,
snowing days.
yeah, now it's like, okay, ice out to 35 degrees, 35 to 40, 40 to 43, 43 to 46, 47 to maybe 50, then like 50 to 55. and I've got like totes and totes of crap for every 3 degrees of water temp throughout the whole season.
Ain't lying.
No. Well, he's like, how much more shit do you need? I'm like, well, 90% of that I can't even touch for another 3 months.
Well, what if it gets up to 106?
Right. I've got 10 different baits and 3 different colors. Every single one of those baits I know is going to work in that 3-degree water swing. Anyway, all right, so South Jersey, what's your opinion on dead twitch glides or cover glides? How do you like to work them, and do you prefer those to be slow float as well?
To be honest, I'm not even familiar with those terms. Like, people just making things up at this point. Like, I don't know. What's a dead twitch glide? Because I hear a dead twitch, I'm thinking of a bait made by Matt Lures. Is that a floating glide that's designed to be twitched on the surface? I really don't know. Or a cover glide. I mean, I don't know what that is.
Jersey,
Are you guys familiar with the term? I'm just being honest.
No. I know nothing.
I thought you would know.
I spend most of my time on the water, not on these forums. So, like, I'm kind of out of the loop on a lot of things.
Yep.
Like the DRT K9.
Oh, okay. I mean, the K9 is a fantastic bait. I mean, I've caught a ton of fish. So the versatility of that bait is pretty amazing. I mean, that's a bait that I had take on water and now is a like 9 to 12 foot killer cranking it down because it sinks a little bit deeper than some of the other ones. But I mean, it fishes easy as you want it to. You can crank it like a square bill. That's kind of how we were fishing that ripple claw yesterday. It was just going down the bank and slow rolling it. You can glide it by taking the bill out on that Clash 9. I did that in the opens last year when I blew up a KGB Chad shad on a dock. I was like, crap. I need that 6-inch profile that I can glide. And if they're sitting in the boat for 10 minutes and messing with it, I could actually weight it. I figured out a weighting system to get that tiny Clash to glide like you all wanted it to out of the package, but doesn't. So holler at my Patreon if you want to see that hack.
Yeah.
But those are fantastic baits. Fantastic baits.
Make sure
Of course, Dan's got the shameless plug.
Dan, there's nothing shameless about it. So that's actually a really good point too for everybody that wants to see not only a lot of not necessarily mass produced, but like not like garage craft build glides or just big swim baits in general, as well as all like the garage build stuff too. Definitely check out the Northeast Swim Bait Expo. That's going to be in Massachusetts, March 18th and 19th. Dan had his first show for it this past April. It was amazing. There was a lot of good vendors there. There's a lot of local bait builders. If you're interested in the big swim bait scene, it really is a fantastic show to go to. I mean, MGC Fishing out of Massachusetts has tons of baits from tons of different companies, both, small scale to large scale. They alone have a ton of stuff. But then again, you also have a lot of local and not so local bait builders that show up too. And dude, it's just a cool scene. Like the whole show is just full of wicked nice people, and they're all there for the same damn thing. It's like it's bass fishing still. Just a little bit more niche and a lot more money in not every case, but in a lot of cases. But that's actually funny because that segues really nicely into King Bait's question. What's the best big bait to get first to get into throwing them? All I have is a 6-inch HUD. And this is actually something that I can answer as well, because I have, despite the fact that I will easily and have done repeatedly gone through like $500 of jigs in a year, I have a hard time buying a single $25 or more bait that's just going to sink like a rock and lose it. I've gotten past that. But that said, these Bait Sanity Antidote glide baits are about $27, I forget. They glide phenomenal. Look at that. He's got one right there in his hand. For their price point, these do wonders. I've got the yellow perch, which is actually pretty good. Little too much yellow, but suppose you could always modify it as such. The rainbow trout is pretty good compared to what we have up here. A little bit too much black, but close enough. Secondary to that, the Storm Arashi glides are also pretty good. I like these. I think these tend to run a little deeper than the Bait Sanity.
Super cheap too, I believe.
Yeah, but again, they're like 25-ish bucks. Like both of these, if you're looking for starter stuff, I mean, it's the same price as a Vision 110. So I don't know. Those are at least the two that I have. Do you have anything else different from that, Oliver, for I guess a good one to get into, both cheaper and maybe not so cheap?
Yeah, I definitely echo the bait sanity sentiment. We got a tackle breakdown video on that specific bait on the Big Bass Streams channel. So if you guys just search tackle breakdown, bait sanity, that should pop right up. How do you beat $30? So start there, and if you're willing to spend a little bit more coin on a proven bait, I mean that Gancraft Joint Claw 178.
Not that one. I thought you could pick that one up.
We're sold out on this on the Big Bass Dream site, but a couple of our partner stores, including guys up your way, Berkshire Bass has got a small order. Bounty Hunters in Connecticut has got a small order. Modern Outdoor Tackle has a small order of them, so you can hope maybe get one from them before it's too late. But it's at $69.99. Honestly, it's a better buy than a lot of these like limited drop baits that I keep seeing from guys. And those are great baits, but it's kind of frustrating when you can't even get one because the demand is so high, which is what makes that show that Dan puts out so cool. Is like these guys really ramp up production and bring hundreds, if not thousands, of baits to the masses. And it's an even better reason or an additional reason to come hang out with like-minded swim bait fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no.
Oh.
All right. I'll get back to that comment in a second. I thought I had more time. MD had another one. I'm curious to hear more on this too. Line for swim baits: braid leader or straight fluoro? We did talk about this recently.
Yeah, the answer is yes. And we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show with my Gancraft 230 presentation yesterday. It's dependent on my presentation and what I want that bait to do. So, depending.
Yep.
I mean, how much time do we got? Like, that's the thing. Like,
It's up to you, man. You're the busy one.
you want a bait to get down, throw it on fluoro. You want to keep a bait high? It used to be mono for me, but I don't like the stretch of the mono anymore.
No.
So I'm braid to fluoro.
When I got my first like legit swim bait rod, I don't remember which one of these baits I had. Oh, it was this guy. It was this 2-piece 8-inch bullshad bull glide, which really, really slow sinking, shallow water. This thing is awesome. I almost got rid of it. I decided to keep it. Instead, I'm going to sell this guy. I actually posted it up. I got a couple of guys interested in it. That's Sly Guy, 5.9-inch Matt Gill. But anyway, so when I got that bull glide, I was like, damn, I need some heavy lines. So I went out and bought, for the life of me, I can't remember what the hell they...
Was the Trilene Big Game 25-pound?
Yeah, 25-pound mono. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I know a few guys that said they fished it. It's 25-pound. That's got to be fairly stiff. Nope.
No, you set
Still
the hook
stretches a
and
mile.
you could run halfway across the lake and not even set the hook yet.
That's why back in the early days, there was a lot of big hook sets because you weren't even really moving the bait that much.
Yeah.
So it's taken an adjustment with fluorocarbon and especially braided leader is to understand like you need to adjust for the lack of stretch. And once you can get over a mental hurdle doing that, you're going to benefit for increased sensitivity and just being in touch with your presentation, your bait, and those fish way more than. I mean, dude, it happens all the time. Like my friends jump in the boat, and so many of them are still stuck on straight fluoro. They get on the boat and whatever it is we're fishing, like they can't tell the difference if they're in a clump of grass or on a fish. Like what the hell? It's just that lack of sensitivity is what they're used to. But then they're seeing me like I'm not swinging like on grass. I can tell it's grass, and I can blow my bait clean through it because of that lack of stretch, and I can capitalize and present that bait way more efficiently than they can every time. And they're not getting more bites than me because they're fishing straight fluorocarbon and those fish are line shy. Especially once you get into this world of bigger baits, if you're doing your job, they don't give a crap what your bait is tied to. They're not swimming up and looking ahead of your bait and be like, oh dude, that looks like a crappy Alberto knot. I'm not biting. Like, that fish needs to be focused on your lure in that presentation. Like, I mean, I've caught largemouth and smallmouth on musky tackle with 130-pound fluorocarbon leaders to 100-pound braid.
Holy shit.
It doesn't matter if you are doing your job.
Yeah.
But that being said, I've been fishing nothing but Defiant, either braid or straight fluorocarbon for the past 3 years now, and that's what I'm confident in.
I am very impressed with that Defiant 23. Was it 23 and a half?
Do 23.8 pound.
And honestly, and like I wanted those guys to make sizes that you couldn't get from anybody else, because like I thought 25 was too heavy to throw a 7-inch bait.
I want like a 28 pound.
But I thought they've got 28.9 pound, I think.
Do they?
Say
28.9. All right, perfect. Looks like I'm
Yeah.
gonna order a spool when I get home.
yeah.
I just threw away the thing because I re-spooled one of my rods with that too. It's the I got it from Lakeside Outfitters when I was out there at the Northeast Swim Bait Expo.
Yep.
And was it the smooth casting I think I got?
Yep.
Dude, that, oh my God. Even still now, like I relined one of my rods with that right after that show because I bought the Bait Sanity Explorer Glide, the gill.
Yep.
And I threw that on there. I ended up casting an idiot and I broke it off. But aside from that, that was my fault. That wasn't the line's fault. I haven't broke off anything else since then. And yeah, now, okay, so I've had it on there for 6 months. Dude, that line still casts like super smooth. The memory really isn't that bad considering it's been on a rod I don't use that often for the last 6 months. And it being a heavier line, like I was slinging the hell out of it this past Sunday because I was throwing big baits and I was like, holy shit, this line's still phenomenal.
Yeah, man. It's fantastic. Here, I'm gonna talk to the team over there. We'll do a one-time discount code for anybody that wants to try it for the first time.
There you go.
10%
Highly recommend it.
first order, and we can make the code 603BASS on defiantfishing.com.
Yo,
Love it.
That'd be sick.
Easy enough?
Hell yeah.
Easy enough.
Let me write that email right now. So I'd give it like 30 to 40 minutes before it's up. But yeah.
That'd be sweet. I'm actually gonna just go get some then.
I'm trying to get a link for the site. I'll throw it right up in there.
603BASS, no space.
Beautiful. Yep. Spot on. Come on, website. Let's go. It's not the website. It was me. I misclicked. Defiant, shop, line, grab the link, click, pay. Dude, with two screens is amazing.
Yeah, because we got that
code
live, and this is
603 Bass.
this is still confusing the hell out of me.
Just
These two
not
screens.
yet. Wait a little bit.
There you go. Cover your eyes.
10% off, you said?
Yep.
Bam. And pin. There you go, people.
Perfect.
Right there in the chat. You got a link directly to Defiant where they sell their line. Easy peasy.
Yep, easy peasy. So if you guys don't have a ton of rock in most of your fisheries, right?
Oh, yeah, we do.
We have a lot of
We are the granite state.
But that's what I like to hear because it's a lot of the same here on the West Coast. So if you're bottom bouncing soft baits, especially, that heavy cover fluorocarbon is what I use.
Yep.
And if you're fishing around a lot of vegetation, I love the ability to clear my bait with my reel with that smooth casting braid to a short Defiant shock leader. That lack of stretch allows me to actually rip that bait free of the vegetation.
snaps it through. Yeah.
Yep, snapping it through, and that keeps you fishing through that retrieve, but also triggers a lot of bites, as you guys know, through that vibrating jig. Same
right.
deal. Honestly, I was getting bit doing that with the ripple claw yesterday. So I'd feel a little bit of grass, catch it, clear it, boom, and
Well-
it just had a straight reaction.
When we went out with David that day, and I caught first cast, and I caught that like 2.5, 3 pound or whatever it was.
Oh, on the
250,
50.
right on the shore.
Yeah, you dropped it within inches of the bank in 2 feet of water.
And I snapped it out, and it just hammered it. Same thing. The reaction.
Big baits operate in the same manner, man. You can get a lot of reaction bites. So here's another tip: when you guys are practicing your offhand, low profile, like roll side cast, as soon as it hits the water, quietly, like Greg Louganis, like entering an Olympic pool on a dock, hit that thing once or twice and get that glide to dart. You will get a lot of bonus bites by landing right on that fish's head, and like you dart it right in its face like a freaking mosquito in your own face. So you can't help but like smack at it.
I can think of an exact area where I need to do that this Sunday. And
Are we going up there?
Yeah, I think we're going up there.
Okay.
There's a couple of weird things I want to try. And those baits I was trying to remember earlier, which I did remember, but I'm not going to correct myself. We can talk about it offline. They're coming in on Friday, and I want to try some weird shit with those. Saturday or Sunday's gonna be another experiment day. We know if we go out there and we do like 1 of 5 different things, we're gonna crush them.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but if we go out there and we just try a bunch of weird shit and try a couple of new areas, I'm just curious. And then really for me, I just I want to go throw my glide, man.
Telling me.
You guys are getting me like beyond hype to do this, and now my confidence, like all of a sudden, just mentally, it was like a switch went off during all this conversation where it's like I understand now, and with understanding, I will have patience. It was the same damn thing with the jerkbait for me. I just didn't understand. And I got frustrated because I'm like, I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
I swear to God, if you get glides before you get jerk baits,
I got jerk baits,
I'm
though.
gonna hug you. I'll just hug you anyway then.
It's funny because I almost threw a jerk bait Sunday, and then talking to another friend that was out there, they crushed him on jerk baits. I was like, yeah I saw the conditions. I was like, I figured that was gonna work.
To be honest, I'm kind of surprised neither one of you swooped on any of the jerks.
I did. I got 2 from you.
I almost did, and then you sent me like 600 pictures of this, and I'm like, God damn, dude, my wallet's chafing. You sent me the one next to your hand, I was like, check my Venmo. Shit. All right. I'll take it.
I got 2 of those Rest 128s from you, which I think you shipped out Monday, and then
the 2 packages. That's right.
Yep, and then the 230 the next day.
Yeah.
That color, it's funny. I only have, I'm trying to think. I actually have a decent amount of custom painted jerk baits, but a lot of them are very eerily, help.
I'm not helping.
Come on. Very similar to this. Because I was specifically trying to get a rainbow colored smelt pattern in a lot of my jerk baits. Because that's like the primary forage in a lot of these smallmouth lakes up here. And I've had some of my best days on those. And, some of them are Vision 110 knockoffs and Lucky Craft Pointer SP 110s, 100s, I forget.
I can't support that part of the culture.
I had a friend grab them. I don't know what to tell you.
We designed that color really to mimic everything because those colors on that bait are very prevalent on threadfin shad, gizzard shad, aloe, rainbow trout, kokanee in the Pacific Northwest. Like those bluish, purplish, greenish shoulders, you'll see on just about everything that a bass likes to eat.
Yep.
When I saw that it had the green top, I was like, oh yeah. Yep, I'm getting that. Oh, it's gorgeous.
I couldn't not get it. I had to at least get the jerk baits, and then he was like, "What about the 230?" Or maybe the 303, and he was like, "How about both?" I'm like, I gotta pick one. And I was like, then I had to sell other baits too, and I already posted up 2 baits to go.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's been pretty sweet being able to do this with Gancraft. We're gonna hopefully have one every quarter, so I'm already working on the next one. This color obviously is gonna shine in like high visibility water.
Yep.
Often than not, but I was catching them out of some like 6-inch viz not too long ago with it too. But the next colorway will be to target some of that stain stuff, like the 2 to 6 foot viz, whether it's like that peat boggy, like tannic water, or just like straight mud in the south. Right. I got an idea for a perch.
Gotta do it.
Maybe middle of next year when I'm back in the Northeast. I'm a little selfish that way, right? I'm actually trying to fill voids in what I need as the seasons progress over these next 3-4 drops, and honestly ongoing. So there will be a perch coming. I got an idea for a perch based on what I've observed in the Northeast and catching those perch. It's like, like as cool as like that looks, or any of these other like perch patterns, like I don't really see a whole lot of perch that look like that myself.
Right.
No,
they're different in some spots here.
Yeah. Every time I try and if I see one that like closely resembles what we've got, I don't even question it. I buy it. I gotta have it.
Nice.
I mean, like this does not look like a perch up here.
No, right. Too much yellow. Way too much yellow. And there's no damn orange in that.
I've seen a couple perch like that, but they looked deathly sick.
Here's a little tip for you guys. When you guys got baits that you feel are like too like aggressive color wise, just put them outside. Let them bake in the sun for a few days or a week or 2 weeks. That UV radiation will wash that color out and like mute it. You probably notice that on baits you actually have tied on all the time. It's like, oh crap, the color's changed.
Yeah,
So
Can be to your benefit, like you said.
Yep.
This thing is almost.
I mean, with
like,
those size of those smelt in that lake, this is pretty close to the size of the. Actually,
that
it is
rainbow
the same
trout
size.
pattern, honestly, is also another great pattern to mimic just about everything. I mean, take away the dots, and most bait fish have that greenish, tint to it, or
Yep.
it just looks very fishy.
I mean, I've thrown the depths 250 in trout. I've thrown this thing in every single body of water that we've gone to, pretty much, and a lot of them don't have any trout in them at all. So it's like it doesn't matter really.
No, and you know what? That's actually one of the things I meant to touch upon earlier. But real quick, to your point on this about like one of the biggest fish I've ever seen in my life, and no exaggeration, was the one that I had chased this last year. It was this very bait, this pattern, like literally the bait I'm holding in my hand. It was this one, and it was only in like 8 feet of water at max, but I think it was about 6 feet deep, where I 180'd it in front of her face, and she decided she wanted to eat it, and she literally swam right at me, right below my feet, and I could not have gotten a better look at a fish if I tried.
Did you try?
Honestly,
Did you try 8-trapping it at the rock pit?
no, because I didn't know to do that.
You need to do it. Like if you go back on my Instagram page,
I saw it.
and see that video, that was me.
Oh yeah,
that was me testing this ripple claw. Like I had just got the sample, and one followed it, and it wasn't even that aggressive. And if you remember that video, like, dude, I don't know how many revolutions I made, but like it was a pretty delayed strike.
Oh yeah, it was.
Like you can't give up on those close proximity fish, and you can see them. Like the goal, in my opinion, is to keep that bait going enough to where like they're focused on it, like to where they notice you're standing on top of them in a 20-foot plus boat or whatever. But you should be able to still see them through that turbulence that you're creating and read their body language still. Mm-hmm. It's just like messing with your buddy's cat all over again. Like I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Eventually, he's just going to freaking strike it out of reflex. But if you don't try it, you can't catch him that way.
Truth.
I mean, I got friends that fish with me that have seen me do it, and they still don't even try when one follows to the boat. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, don't stop.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen it happen. So be cognizant of that and don't give up.
I feel like the fit when they're following up and they get to the boat and they start looking, like you said, they're just kind of like looking at it. It's like a bait fish is trapped in between the fish and something else, and it's just trying to freaking out. It doesn't know what to do, and the bass is just like waiting for its time to strike, for the perfect opportunity to eat that bait.
Yep. One of the other things we didn't talk about that I meant to bring up a second ago, for another added layer of perspective on what these glides can do, and I am by no means an expert on these, but I have been fishing around them or with them enough the last 3 years to have at least experienced this that I can say with absolute confidence. Even if you're not going to catch fish with a bait this big, I have not seen anything else I've thrown in my whole life that has called out fish more than a big glide fish. Even if you're not catching them, the fact that it calls them out and shows you what's there, that in and of itself makes these baits worth throwing. And I'm not exaggerating, like the number of fish that I saw, even this, like especially this past Sunday, but every time we go out somewhere, and again, Andrew's been throwing this depth since spring. That's a 10-inch friggin', well, I think it's 10-inch.
It is.
Glide. It's a rainbow trout. We're throwing it in like kettle ponds that have never had trout in them ever, or if they did, it was like 100 years ago or whatever, and just. It's insane. We go up to a spot that we're like, yeah, they should be here. And then next thing I know, 2 casts in, he's got a bunch of fish following this out. And they're not always big, but he's still calling them out of spots that, like, otherwise, it could be like a really nice thick patch of vegetation. It's got a couple holes. And you're like, yeah, usually that's something maybe pick apart with a Senko or Texas rig or whatever. Dude, he just throws that thing over the top and you can just watch him come out of the holes. And sometimes they swipe at it. Sometimes they fall to the boat. But then you go over another area and it's like there's nothing there. And in that case, now what I've seen this thing do, I really think there's just not fish there. It's almost like a fish finder as much as it is a catcher. So I guess just another added layer of perspective on what you can do with a big bait like this.
Like the other day when I went out, just the day that I got this, I brought it over to your house.
Yep.
And then I went straight to that pond and was casting it from shore. And first cast, I had 4 fish follow this out. Probably, I'm guessing one was just around 5 pounds. 2 were probably low 4s to high 3s, and then there was one other one that was like a 2.5 to 3 pounder.
Yep. And another spot you're talking about, it's less than 3 feet of water the whole way. So it's not like they're distorted from being down.
So it was like a 1.5 foot where I was casting into.
Yeah.
Foot deep.
You've got a very good scale perspective, accurate perspective of scale in the fish in that shallow water.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I texted him right after. I'm like, seriously?
Gotta love it, man. Gotta love it.
Awesome. I love it.
I think I can catch one on that in the next couple of weeks. I'm going up north, and they've got really big bait fish in there. So I think a 303 is applicable again.
Oh, I'm throwing this weekend for sure.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
We're going to make a lure retriever. That's something we were talking about. Oh, your floats. You don't.
Scuba tank.
Yeah, seriously. All right. This actually probably is a good time to call it quits. We got to pretty much everybody in the chat. It's already been an hour and a half. I want to keep this to about an hour. But hey, close enough. So before we go, Oliver, I want to turn the floor to you again. Go ahead and talk about everything you have going on with absolutely everything. Let people know where they can find you, where you want them to find them. Have at it.
Good grief, man. Got a lot of BS going on. It's all great. So, a lot of the things that we talked about tonight, guys, I've already covered on our own platforms and channels, Big Bass Streams, YouTube especially. Go back and look at those tackle breakdowns we've been doing for the past year or so. You can learn a lot. We literally show you guys the bait, the rod, the reel, the line, the why. We got links in the description to where you can find the stuff, and real world proof of us actually catching these fish on public water, like actually doing it. Blows my mind that there are guys out there that will observe something and then speak on it like it was their own experience. I actually saw it first happen like 6 years ago. A friend of friends were with us on a smallmouth trip on Lake Huron. First day I've ever been up there. I catch a new PB on my first cast there, so I always have a soft spot in my heart for Lake Huron. But ended up catching them on a Megabass 185 because those fish we were catching on 5-inch spark shads and Ito shiners are spitting up white bass or white perch. I'm sorry.
Yep.
What? Wait, what were?
Smallies were spitting up perch this big.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, oh, shit. Need a glide? And I waxed them on a 185. And these guys were mind blown because all they ever did was finesse fish for these smallmouth. And then next thing you know, he's got a YouTube video about smallmouth fishing with glide baits. I'm like, bro, you didn't even do it.
Ain't that the worst?
I can tell you right now that up here in New Hampshire, there's a lot of guys, same deal. And we have a lot of white perch in a lot of areas, and it's just usually they're going for finesse. And then one team this year figured out the glide, and they had 22 pounds on 4 fish, and they won the tournament. They got 5 bites all day.
That's all you need.
Bites.
Yeah, that's been my strategy, a terrible strategy on the Bassmaster Opens, but work 3 days in a row and I'm good.
Yeah.
It's all I do. But we got a lot of content coming across all platforms. Honestly, Instagram is probably still my favorite platform. So if you want like up-to-date like information on anything, including like when we drop these baits, Instagram is probably the first platform I go to post. And then, we do stuff on Facebook too. We're even on TikTok now, but we're not doing any stupid dance challenges or anything. We're keeping
come on.
straight fishing content, relevant content, and
Damn right.
we attract the right audience because that quality over quantity still applies to everything that I do. I'd rather have 10 of the right guys watching what we're doing instead of 10,000 morons.
Yep.
So appreciate everybody that supports us, supports you guys, because if they haven't figured it out by now, you guys are part of the Big Bass Dream Team because I see it in you. You guys are the real deal. I've seen you do the work. You guys catch these fish. You guys live the life. You guys walk the walk. I just hate guys that talk about it and aren't really living it. So
the only reason I talk about it is because it's happened.
there's not enough of that anymore. So
thank you very much, buddy.
Sure, man. Appreciate you both.
All right. Well, There you have it. So if you go down to the video description below, I'll have links to everything for Big Bass Streams down there. You've got links to our social media. Anybody who wants to become a channel member, we are a little behind.
We're open
on
for business, though.
private streams. And actually, we've got a couple of opportunities for some guide trips up to Vermont coming up. For any of you that are willing to brave some cold weather, I promise you we can put you on some big smallmouth.
I mean, cold. Like,
Bring out your
Ice
ice fishing
fishing
gear.
gear.
Not even kidding.
and like hand warmers. Bring a buddy heater if you want, or we got two.
We have two.
three,
We'll be
two,
good.
three,
We
so-
got the buddy heaters. Just bring the warm weather, or warm gear, and hot cocoa. Maybe you can rock paper scissors, Andrew, for shotgun spot in the drive home in the new Tundra with the heated seats.
Take it. I'll take a nap. The view is great through like the 8,000-inch window.
Dude,
So nice, dude. Kidding me?
every time I get it, I've had it for a month now. I just sit in and I'm like, how the hell did I get this? This is awesome.
I love
It's
your
funny
truck.
when people talk crap on that truck, but it's the nicest truck I've ever driven.
Oh yeah, dude.
So nice. The
Ridiculously
first day he
nice.
got it, he let me drive it, and I was like, and we get onto his road, and it's kind of like straight for a little while, and I just like,
I
he's
felt
like,
the
"Do it,"
hesitation. So much more power over what I had before.
yeah, I was surprised it didn't light him up, honestly.
That's
I don't know if it's got traction control in that or whatever, but like I've noticed even like if especially the first 2 weeks because it's so much smoother than my old Tundra, my 2006 I just traded in. Like even coming around corners when I get on a little hotter than I mean to, the tires don't like to quite break free on that as much. But like you said, Oliver, it doesn't really have that like off the line punch. It's got like that slight little like kind of ease into it, but then like as soon as you get past that first like half second, it's like holy
Well, that's
shit.
what you want in towing. So
Yeah, truth.
Totally. Yeah, that 5.7 was a torque monster, and this is the much nicer truck to drive, experience wise. Like,
Yep.
it's a nicer driving experience.
I love it.
And hit 'em.
Anyway,
Yeah, congrats on that.
thank you. All right, so yeah, I don't know if you guys are interested. Everything you need down in the chat. If you're interested in a guided trip up to Vermont, hit us up by email 603bass@gmail.com. We get a couple of open weekends here. Otherwise, thank y'all for watching. Andrew, I have no idea what the hell we're doing next week, so just wait until we post something about it next Tuesday. Andrew, sign her off. Oh, yeah, no, we'll talk about that after we
Okay.
stop the stream.
well, thank you again, Oliver, for joining us, and we will see you guys next Wednesday, just like every other Wednesday at 8:00 at youtube.com/603bass. Have a good night.